Hello, welcome to Living the Liminal this week. I'm so glad you're here. It's Christy Peck. Wow, we've been talking about consciousness, and last week I talked about the freedom mindset, which is really a requirement in a way for you to live a conscious lifestyle. And I've come to learn that, like, I'm always learning, right? We're never really done with our learning. That's the journey of life. It's to sort of, come in and out of this awareness, and then kind of go back into a slumber, and then come into an awareness again, and then go back into it a slumber. And if you can sort of like find the fun in that, which is sort of detaching from, oh my gosh, it has to look a certain way, or oh, it has to feel a certain way. And it has to be a certain way. Like, when you get locked into those have tos and those shouldas, that's really where you start to anchor yourself in a density that's just not real. And that's where the illusions sort of, flirt with you a little to make you believe that that is real. And what has always worked for me, to be honest, is I've always, since I can even remember, felt this inclination to be sort of a servant to this external life in terms of symbolisms and synchronicities and signs. I have laughed at them. I have found them funny throughout life. I mean, I can even remember being younger and having experiences that would just be like, some might say coincidence, but there was something in me that always believed that there was more to what I was seeing. There was more going on than what I could see. And I think that's honestly what led me to this very rich spiritual life. And yet the cumbersome of feeling like something was missing in my spiritual life, and always sort of searching for that. And I can't even tell you when it was, many, many, many years ago. I think it was like around the time that my younger twins were born, which would be almost 18 years ago, that I started paying attention to the dreams I was having, and just writing down just different things that would pop up, and kind of just allowing myself to think, what is that about? And I think it was really like, it was building the muscle of creativity, and building the strength and trusting what was coming through as guidance. And when I made the decision 2 years ago to estrange from my family of origin, I have said to so many people that while that decision externally, right, in our society and in our culture and in the world that we live in, seems so beyond an understanding, there was something symbolically that was guiding. It was a force that I could not reckon with. No matter how much I battled that choice that I was making, there was something in it that was more consciously aware than I was in this existence I was finding myself in. And I have told someone just recently that I trust everything going on externally, because my dreams have evolved to such a beautiful place. And in the beginning of that decision, and even preceding that decision, my dreams were filled with such toxic anger and hate, to where I would wake up frightened and thinking, oh my God, like, is there something wrong with me? Like, is there really something wrong with me? And I would wake up feeling frightened for my life. And I would wake up just being like in this state of intense curiosity to understand what was going on. And Carl Jung talks about living the symbolic life. Like, what does that really mean? And, a lot of people will talk about your ego is a story, and you're just playing your story out on stage. And, while that's great and that's fine, that may not work for everyone to understand. what it truly means to live a symbolic life. And and there's this aspect that is sort of like getting to the heart of the unconscious mind by standing in the center of the shadow. So there's some really prevalent aspects to Jung's work in his psychology of understanding the psyche and the mind and how they really form our personality and they orchestrate our consciousness, and they help guide us to living in a way that just feels so freeing, as if you're sort of like a bird flying through the air. You know, you got a mission, you got a purpose, but you're just flying, and you can end up in all different kind of places. And the other night I had this very interesting dream, and I thought, well, why not bring it on the podcast, right? Why not share it with you? So I'm going to share it with you and kind of unpack it a little, to show you and to show those of you who are listening how your dreams really are the most trustworthy partnership. They don't always show you what you want to know, because dreams just work like that, but they're always going to show you the truth, and they're going to help you get more truthful about why you're here, what you're here to do, where you can do your work, because they are the most, your unconscious mind, it holds this sacred sanctuary within it. It holds, and it safeguards all that you are and all that you have always wanted to be but couldn't, and all the possibility is all located in this. You know, we want to think of it as almost like this dark tunnel, and to passage your way through it just really allows you a certain sense of freedom and peace and joy. And I personally think a whole lot of fun. I think the whole dream world is hilarious to watch how dreams and the characters and the symbolism show up. So the other night I was dreaming, and the dream was like a nighttime-ish kind of a dream. And I was playing, you know, the game like hide and seek. Well, that's the kind of game we were playing. We were playing hide and seek, and it was me and another woman, and she was a little bit older than me, but I wouldn't say that she was so much, like she wasn't an elder, right? She wasn't like so much older than me, just maybe a little bit older than me. She was dressed in, I think this is funny because even as I'm sharing the story, it keeps coming up, work clothes. So like a suit. And I was just in some casual clothes, but it was nighttime and we were playing like this game of hide and seek like you play. But the game itself, the rules were that you had to find a tree and there was a shadow behind the tree, and you had to measure out how to get to the center of the shadow and then stand in that dark center of the shadow. Okay. So of course I wake up and I really want to delve into like the aspects of this dream. One, because it was all about playing a game, which I think was just my unconscious revealing to me that there's some fun and flirtiness in living this sort of symbolic life, right? And to really kind of find what's real and what's not real is sort of like an art. It's sort of like an archaeologist when they go on a dig and they're looking for the gem or the treasure, right? Okay, so in this dream, I first unpacked that it was happening in nighttime, which nighttime is always like a very present kind of a space. It's filled with silence. Sometimes it incorporates the idea of healing or rest, the onset of an awakening. So, you know, you're in this nighttime, and then of course there's going to come the daytime. And a lot of times, if you've ever been like me, who wake up in the middle of the night, you kind of have some of your biggest ahas in the nighttime, right? And then if you think about that concept that we often say when we're walking ourselves through a storm or a challenge or a rough time in our life, and we say, oh, it was a very dark time in my life, right? So if we take a lot of that and we kind of get a little messy with it, to me, in my dream, the nighttime was representative of this unconscious slumbered state. And it could be positive or negative, right? There's no permanency, and especially in nature. Like nature is always moving and evolving. If you just stand outside for one moment and just kind of watch the natural organic flow of trees and flowers and bushes and ground, and it's always moving. And I think about even some of those the photos that they'll take, and they'll do it like they'll take it in time lapse, so you can kind of see there's just this really slow evolutionary change that's constantly going on. So that's kind of what I think about in when the night aspect showed up in my dream. And then the other symbol that I kind of played with and got a little, messy with was the idea of the tree. Now the tree keeps coming up for me a lot lately. And the tree, I think of as growth and life and strength, like being able to withstand many external affairs. So like, if there's a huge windstorm, some trees will bend, but they don't break. Some parts of the tree might break off, but not the full essence of the tree. I even know, like in our backyard, we've had, tree people come and cut down a tree, and the base of that tree still sits in the ground with the roots attached. Like that's a whole other mission, to dig up every essence of that. So there's some stability there. There's some strength there. To me, a tree is very symbolic of like wholeness, like the totality of all the parts, right? Because there's like the root, the bark, the stem, the leaves, the branches. I mean, you could, there's probably more stuff that I don't even know about. And to me, like within the trunk, there's this solidarity, is like, kind of like the true self never changes, right? And then the idea of roots coming like below is sort of like living secured in the underground, which is kind of funny because that shows how the unconscious mind is a secure, safe place to journey to find out more about yourself. Kind of like life has a heartbeat. That's what the way I think of the unconscious mind. Like there's a little bit of rhythm there to being your true self, and then traveling to the underground and getting some nourishment from the roots, right? Letting the unconscious mind show you aspects of yourself. And then the idea of like leaves and branches, they can come and go, kind of like the accessories of a persona and how you look. Like if you think about the seasons are always, you're going to have leaves come, leaves grow back in. You're going to have different colors of your leaves. You're going to have, sometimes there are blossoms that come from trees, and certain times of the year that the blossoms come. And so there's always like this whole aspect, the totality of all these parts. So that's what I kind of think of the tree, right? And then the tree, because it's so big and vivacious, it allows for the shadow to be seen. So again, within this essence of the true self and the availability to go underground into this shadow, into this darker part of the unconscious mind, and then to determine how you want to be showing up, there's always a shadow element that's at play as well. And how big or small your shadow is dependent upon how much light is coming in. So if you think about that symbolically, there's a lot there to kind of take with me in my everyday, right? Okay, so then I want to talk about that shadow in the dream. Because in the dream, the aspect was that the woman and I were to go into the shadow and to actually find the midpoint, find the center. And the thing is that we seem to be a people and a human species and a consciousness that really wants to run away from our center. And what I mean by that is we sort of want to like run away from the essence of who we really are. I mean, we'll do anything and everything to defend the not knowing, to defend the not seeing the truth. Like, I'll go to great lengths for someone to not see the truth of my humanity, in terms of like, I can just take on an emotion from someone else. I can take on the sadness, the grief I can take on the manipulation. I can take on the morbidity of situations. I can take those on, and I can live in a really dark place. I don't always want to be showing that to everybody. And what's very interesting is when I made the decision to estrange, because I knew something in my heart was guiding this, something within my soul was guiding this. I did not understand. I had every human emotion available possible. And there was a lot that had to be unpacked and understood, but not from an egocentric place. I had to understand what it really means to be evolutionary beings in a conscious world. And by way of that, this me coming into understanding what the shadow is a beautiful dark place that the soul allows you to travel in so that you can come into your true self and to come into your true knowing and to come into your truth and to begin to develop agency, the strength and the courage and the stability to withstand anything and everything. So that at that point, you are making a choice how you are willing to show up or not, right? So it's very, the shadow is a very interesting place in our lives. And we don't want to travel into dark places. I mean, come on, think about it. Who wants to go into a dark tunnel? Who wants to go into a dark room? I even laugh because like when my kids were little, they never wanted to like, okay, so like if my husband and I went up to bed and the kids were still on the main floor watching TV and they would go to bed late, we would wake up and every single light would be on in the house. They would not turn out lights to go upstairs to their bedroom. They would literally leave every light on to walk upstairs and go to bed. They would even turn our hallway light on to go into their bedroom. So then now the hallway light is is like projecting out onto everyone. And it's so interesting. We don't want to go into the dark. It is a scary, fearful place. And yet to truly understand the truth of who you are, to understand why you are here, like what is your purpose? There's only the process of looking at your shadow and getting to the center of your shadow, getting to the heart of it. Find the life beat and the life pulse and the heartbeat of the darker parts of you. There's life in them. I mean, come on. I'm a little wild. Okay, maybe I'm a lot wild. I'm a little cranky. I mean, when I get hungry and tired, those are not good combinations for me. So when I get hungry and tired, yes, there is a certain me that comes out that is not like my everyday me. And I can hide those aspects of me, or I can just live into them a little and to not apologize for them necessarily, but to understand that there's this side of me that will come out. When I'm mad and angry, there's another side of me that kind of comes out. And instead of walking on eggshells and hiding those parts of me, what if I truly was allowed to just be myself? And you know what ends up happening? This is kind of like ironic. You don't really have to show those parts of you because your life begins to nourish you and nurture you in ways that these parts of you that you're so scared to show don't really have relevance anymore. They're not really as important as you once thought they were. So like, what if freedom and joy and fun was like literally possible by getting to the heart of the unconscious mind and standing in the center of your shadow? And to be honest, like that's what the dream world does. That is what your dreams do. When you invite in that truest partnership of truth, you can begin to know yourself in such a completely different way. And that's really what it means to live the symbolic life. And once you start developing this powerful partnership with your unconscious mind through dream language, you will start to notice the symbolism in your external life on your waking world, in your waking life. You start to kind of notice things just show up. You think about something and they show up, or something shows up and you're like, oh my gosh, I dreamt about that the other night, or it's the same concept that I was dreaming about the other day. I've even had a couple moments where something I dreamed about, like a place, like a few weeks later, I was driving down the road and I looked over and I was like, oh my gosh, that building, that parking lot, that was in my dream. So it's to show you that we are so always connected. There's not really separation. So even if we physically, okay, in the physical sense, so body to body, if we separate from something, there really is no separation. It's all connection. It's just connection in a different way. And it's connection from the truest sense and not some of the projections that take place. Because we are always at the core of who we are. We're always longing for this truth, and we're longing for this form of trust. And that's why the tree is so significant in this dream of mine, because it sort of demonstrates the eternal, and it demonstrates withstanding a storm. And, you know, for us in our relationships, especially the mother relationship, and again, I can only speak from being a daughter to a mother, you know, I can't speak from being a son, but I would pretty much say it's very similar, right? But for me, being the daughter to a mother, there are certain things that I always really longed for and felt like they just were never there. And so it was in that relationship that I had to come to understand that what I really, really wanted and needed, like really needed, it just was never going to happen. And it doesn't mean you can't stay in relationships, because you definitely can. I mean, there's a lot that goes on in a relationship, especially a long-standing relationship like a mother to a daughter. But there's this art of like mothering ourselves. And it doesn't have to, it's not defined by how you were mothered. Okay, that's just sort of a reflection that was a conditioning that taught you something, again, so that you would bring yourself into consciousness. That's really the ultimate purpose of all of us, is to bring ourselves into consciousness so that we are consciously choosing by way of this very unconscious life. And so this art of mothering is really about seeing the divine mother within myself, seeing that I have the availability to nurture and to nourish and to empower and to play and to speak lovingly and to encourage. I have that within me, for me, always, to me, always. It doesn't ever go away. It lies within the heartbeat of my own divinity. So what that means is that, and again, that going back to the dream, like the dream was showing me, get to the center of your shadow, because in the center of yourself is your divinity. It's where you hold your sacred purpose. And within that sacred purpose, you begin to kind of understand, oh, everything I've been looking outward for, I need to give it to myself. I need to give it to me, for me. So like when you're looking for someone to, you know, mentor you, mentor yourself. What would your wise self say to your slumbered self? And the way I think about this, okay, if you want like an image, is, so I have teenagers and I have a boy and a girl teenager, okay? Well, my boy teenager, very much like my two older sons who were boy teenagers at one point, you know, they hit a point where they don't really like to get out of bed. They just want to lay in bed all morning, to where they don't care if they're late for things. They don't care if they're late for school. Getting them out of bed, getting them out of that slumbered state. And especially like if they're so tired, they fall asleep on the couch, and getting them to move, they don't want to move. They're in a slumbered state, right? And so getting them out of the slumbered state is the goal, and getting them into a more awareness so that they know what's expected. They know where they have to show up. So if you think about that imagery there, of a teenager laying in bed, not wanting to get out of the slumbered state. Well, that's kind of the way a lot of us live. We live in this very slumbered state. And you have to really make choices to get out of that. When you become more aware and you continually choose awareness, then you begin to see life totally differently. And you can then give to yourself exactly what you need. So you're not looking externally, you are looking within for the answers that have always been within you for you. No one else knows you better than you know yourself. Now, if you're in a slumbered state, you're going to be possibly looking externally for your satisfaction, your happiness, your joy, your freedom, and that comes by, like, if you're looking for someone to give you permission to do something, you don't need anyone's permission, go do it for yourself. If you're looking for someone to talk to you more lovingly and kindly, talk to yourself more lovingly and kindly. You don't need anyone else to be doing that for you. If you start doing that to yourself and you mother the way you speak to yourself, the way you feel about yourself, the way you see yourself, if you really nurture and nourish that to you, for you, your external landscape will begin to change. And I have no way of knowing what it will change or how it will look, but trust me on this part, it will start to show up in that very lovingly kind, nurturing, nourishing, mothering aspect of loving your whole self for your whole self. A lot of times we as daughters, and I know because I have a teenage daughter, and she looks to me for wisdom. And sometimes I have it, and sometimes I don't. And it's these moments that I don't have it, that if I start feeling less than because I don't have the wisdom for her experience, then I project out onto her that she should have it more than me. And again, we are playing this constant reflection. Mothers and daughters play a reflection game. We're always reflecting to one another. And it's interesting that as I began to sort of understand that I am responsible for me, and while I am her mother, my full responsibility is to take care of my inner landscape, to really nurture and nourish my own inner development. And the more that I do that, what I'm finding is the less she and I are playing that sort of entangling game of tying up each other into a caged, let's say, a caged kind of wiry spinning, holding each other accountable for each other. The more I am finding that she has freedom to go be herself, and I have freedom to go be myself. And I'm actually starting to really see her for like the wow of a person she really is. And sometimes it just makes me so filled with joy. And sometimes it brings some sadness because it's a relationship that I did not have with my own mother. And what's so incredible is I'm looking at my daughter and I'm like, wow, you are so clear about what you want and what you don't want. And you are so open to learning your lessons. And you are so free to feel your feelings and to allow these experiences in your life and grow from them. And she is just like, she's teaching me so much about how to be okay with who I am. It's incredible when we can get out of those roles that we play, get out of the expectation we have to show up in a certain way. I mean, she sometimes is hilarious because she sees right through my stuff. And like, here's an example. So back when she was 11, she wanted, or maybe like 9, maybe 11, I don't know, but she wanted to wear makeup. And we were having this conversation about her wearing makeup. And I was just like, I don't know. I don't think you need to wear it. And of course, I was being that kind of mom that was like all caught up in the societal norms about wearing makeup or not wearing makeup and what it really meant. And she just honestly looked at me and said, those are your issues, not mine. And you probably need to work on those. That's not the way I see makeup. And okay, as a mother, I was like, well, I don't even know what to say to you because you're more brilliant in this moment than I am. So again, like when we can get out of those roles that we play and we can understand there's a freedom to actually make choices about how we show up with each other, then the symbolism for living this symbolic life allows for love to really be unconditional, because it's not based upon a condition in the way you show up that then I offer you love. It is, I love you in all of who you are, and you love me in all of who you are. And love mixed with freedom to be, that's really what we're all searching for. It's literally what we're seeking out. We are wanting conversations around that. And that's really what it means to see the divine mother within yourself, because you learn to love unconditionally and you learn to allow the freedom for someone else to love unconditionally. And then there's a whole like dance that you do with this other person, especially mothers and daughters, to where it's not based on some kind of conditioning and patterning and old outdated influence. It's literally allowing each of us to grow into our true selves, no matter our ages. So it's really a beautiful aspect of understanding how to just live a life that's more open and more consciously responsible, and to have fun in that. Let that be what we flirt with, is how to live and have more fun consciously, aware, and not so in a slumbered state. So I really encourage you to develop a partnership with your dream world and to allow your dreams to come through. If you're someone that's like, well, I don't remember my dreams. Well, that's an opportunity then to say, why don't you date your dreams? Why don't you date them? Why don't you invite them into the space at night? Why don't you welcome them to show you a way? And why don't you respect them in the morning to write them down and to look at the symbolism? And it's a partnership that it pairs itself very well with just the nurturing and the nourishing and the act of mothering yourself. So I highly encourage you to develop a partnership with your dreams. And on the podcast today, I am going to upload for you. I'm going to give you a link so that you can upload how to cultivate a partnership with your dreams. That is something that I really believe. And in my own coaching work, the dream life has been the one I can really trust, because not always can I trust other things. Sometimes I can't even trust the information in books or even as it comes from someone else. But my own dream language is the partnership I can trust. So developing and nourishing the trust in that symbolic aspect has really been a pathway to freedom for me through these choices that I have made. And the other thing is, you can trust what shows up in your dreams as the invitation to how to move forward. It will always show you, it will guide you where you need to go. So again, I'm gonna put that on the podcast for you in our show notes, the handout for you to cultivate your partnership with your dreams. And I highly encourage you to start writing them down and really stay tuned to my work lately, because we are going to, in the new year, offer a coaching program on dream life, the dream world, and the dream language, and how to develop a partnership with your dreams. So start to take note of your dreams. That's the best thing you can do right now, because that really helps you to start to cultivate living a symbolic life. And for me, it is one way of living the freedom mindset, is to cultivate the truth within myself. And there's a quote that I just kind of want to share with you, because I wrote it out lately the other day, and it's just been like nagging at me, and I feel like I want to share it with you today. So there's this author that she has some archetypal cards. She does a lot of writing on the symbolism of life. And the other day I was looking at one of her cards, and the quote was, it's from Kim Kranz, and the quote is, "Brave the forest and get lost getting found." I love that quote. It's really about, one, you're never alone. So when you go to the center of your shadow and you get into that darker place within you, um, you're never alone. You will always, always be shown the way. And it's also about finding what's alive and really following that energy. Because, like within every forest, something is alive, something is moving, something is growing, something is turning colors, something is changing formation. And so find what is alive with energy and follow that lead. You are never alone. And the last part of that quote, what it meant for me was, just receive, just let it come. Let the unconscious mind deliver to you what you need to know so that you can own your deliverance. Because within that, the universal world will spoil you. It will support you. It will nurture you. It will nourish you. It will offer you. It will give you freely everything you've ever wanted and everything you desire. So let it deliver to you so that you can live freely in your deliverance. And that's all I got today. You know what? This podcast has always been about inspiring you to brave the edges, to get closer to the things that scare you. This conversation, living the symbolic life and sharing more about my decisions and how I have gotten to where I am today, simply by braving the edge, simply by living the liminal, living in the unknown, but knowing that it's the right place. That's really perfection for me. That's freedom. And I offer that to you. I really wholeheartedly want that. This week, until I speak with you again, cultivate your dreams. Start that dream life. Start that partnership that is so trustworthy and so loving in every way. And you're a beautiful soul. I love you. Peace out, my friends.